What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Elden Ring build guide. This time we have the Crucibeast and my very first level 100 build. This character will be able to break the stance of any boss with ease. But anyways, let's get into the stats first. Vigor is at 40, so you can tank some damage. Mine is at 15, which is just enough to use your Bestial Vitality, Black Flame's Protection, Golden Vow, before you have to take a Cerulean Flask. Endurance is at 21 because that is exactly what we need to equip everything that I have equipped. Dexterity is just to meet the requirement for Ordovis's Great Sword. Intelligence is by default there. Faith is at 30, can be taken down to 25. I would put those 5 points into either Strength or Vigor, up to you guys. I personally would choose Strength, but I have it at 30 because I won't have access to the Black Flame's Protection. Makes you tankier as your Ash of War. Kind of takes long if you want to fully charge it up, so you might have to take some damage, and having Black Flame's Protection allows you to do that. Now getting into the items, as you can see, Ordovis's Great Sword and Ordovis's Vortex, that's Ash of War, is super amazing. You can charge it up if you want, or you can just use it really fast. It's up to you. Claw Mark Seal, also fully maxed just like the sword, because it scales with Strength and Faith, and we have a lot of points in there. I went for the Crucible armor set. Great Jar's Arsenal is our very first talisman, and it is needed if you wish to carry everything that I am carrying right now, which makes you again super tanky. Godfrey's Icon and Shard of Alexander can be switched out, but we do charge our spells, so they are both useful. You can charge your Ash of War as well, and this will increase the damage of your Ash of War, which you will be using quite a lot. However, you can replace either of them with something, let's say the Claw Talisman if you're doing a lot of jump attacks, or the Green Turtle Talisman. Those are the two that I personally would go for. You can go for the Axe Talisman, I believe, which also enhances charged attacks. That's pretty decent too. And of course this one just to make you tankier. And as you can see, I do not even have all of my flasks. I'm missing 2. It should be 9.5. But just to show you how strong this build is, I'm only at level 100 with 2 flasks missing. Here, of course, Opaline Heart Tier again makes you tankier, and Stone Barbed Crack Tier because you are meant to break the stance of any boss that you will encounter. Anyways guys, let's get into the spells really quickly. Alright, as you can see, I haven't fully beaten the game yet, but let's get into the spells now. Bestial Vitality is very cheap and it's very useful. That's all I can say. I have it on all my builds. Black Flame's Protection makes you super tanky. Golden Vow, again, that's like on every build out there. Any build that has 25 faith will be using Golden Vow. Stone of Goronk is your ranged option. Bestial Sling is your quick attack option, since you are kind of slow when it comes to your melee attacks. Bestial Claw and Goronk's Beast Claw are used in the open world because they cost less and they deal pretty nice poise damage, especially Beast Claw. Aspect of the Crucible Horn and Tail combined together with your Ash of War, you will be breaking the stance of any boss out there, and you will guys see all of that very soon. This one, I use it situationally. It's pretty good, to be honest, but again, you have to know when to use it. But I do not use it against bosses. Bosses is usually 1 and 2 and your Ash of War. Anyways guys, let's get into the guide itself now, so be right back. Margit the Fell Omen. Weaknesses: slashing attacks. Resistances: holy damage. Recommended abilities: use your club if you are running around as a naked level 1 wretch. However, if you do have other abilities,
do use them. Whatever you have, use it against them. I did not do that because I originally started this character as a challenge for myself to defeat all the Limgrave bosses naked without upgrading my weapons or grabbing anything whatsoever, which I ended up completing, of course, and I have uploaded into a playlist over a year ago called Level 1 Wretch Rex Limgrave. Check it out, guys, if you want to see the full fight for any of the bosses in Limgrave. Returning to Margit, however, I have to tell you that he has a negative 10% against slashing attacks. So if you somehow have Beast Claws at this point, which you probably wouldn't, but if you somehow do use it against them, if you have any slashing weapons, I believe such as katanas, then use that against them as well. Of course, his holy damage resistance is at 40%, meaning that only 60% of your damage, your holy damage, will go through when you use it against them. Godrick the Grafted. He has weaknesses against physical damage, resistances against holy at 40%. He also has minor resistances against magic, lightning, at fire at 20%. And all you have to do against this guy is go for your physical damage, as he has 0 resistances against them, meaning 100% of your damage will go through. And as you can see, I am able to do that with my club that has not been upgraded right here. It is my starting weapon. I did not power it up, level it up, upgrade it, or any of that in any sort, way, or form. My Crimson Tears, as you can see, my flasks are all at level 0 pretty much, and I'm having an easy time against him. I'm not dealing massive damage, but I do know the fight very well. Please keep in mind that all of this footage is over a year old, as I intentionally, again, started this character as a challenge run and pretty much decided to turn him into the Crucibeast way later. I was initially experimenting after I beat all the bosses in Limgrave, and after doing some experimentations, I ended up with the Crucibeast.
I am the Lord.
Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon. Weaknesses: standard attacks, slashing attacks, and piercing attacks. Resistances: magic damage at 80%. Recommended abilities: use your regular attacks mixed with aspect of the Crucible Tail in her first phase, because that will help you destroy any ads around her. In her second phase, however, you switch to aspect of the Crucible Horn, and as you can see, the reason is very obvious. You will flip her into the air, and she will barely be dealing any damage to you. Guys, at this point, you should have the Lord Sworn Straight Sword as your weapon of choice.
Come, O giant. Little run.
Star Scourge Radahn. Weaknesses: piercing attacks and rot infliction. Resistances: no surprise, holy damage. Recommended abilities: you should be using your regular attacks. You should have the Banished Knight Greatsword at this point, combining it with Crucible Tail. Crucible Tail here is really good, as it will help you get stance breaks, and even though it has somewhat of a long charging time or casting time, you will be able to use it quite efficiently if you know when to use it, if you know how to sneak in behind Radahn's back and just use it to destroy him. Otherwise, if you do not have a big opening, go for jump attacks. If you have a somewhat medium opening, you go for charged attacks, and when you have big openings, you go for aspect of the Crucible Tail. And as you can see here, I thought he was gonna kill me. I'm out of Crimson Flasks. However, I remain aggressive and I use tail to finish him off here with a stance break and a critical hit. Check out my stats as well, guys. He should be at level 50 at this point. Morgott, the Omen King. Weaknesses, slashing attacks, and apparently lightning damage. Resistances, only damage at 40%. Recommended abilities, as you can see, use your weapon, your Ash of War, which you can obtain by heading to Ariza's Hero's Grave. I believe I pronounced that right, I hope. And utilizing Stone of Gorunk when you are afar. Make sure you also have Great Jar's Arsenal at this point if you want to equip all of armor set and equip your weapon and have at least 21 points into endurance. Alright guys, you can also go for Beast Claws here. Apparently it's supposed to deal more damage to him since he has minus 10 resistances against slashing attacks. However, I would not use Beast Claw that much, and if you do use it, make sure you fully charge it, however. But I would use it out in the open world a lot more than I would here, because as you can see, it doesn't matter how many of the projectiles hit the target, they only count the damage for one of the projectiles. So whether one hit or 5 hit, it will deal the same amount of damage, which I think is not a great idea, and they should probably change that. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Weaknesses, slashing, standard, and piercing, of course, with some frostbite. Resistances, mainly fire, and from the physical department, striking attacks. Now, he does have resistances towards the standard slashing and pierce attacks, but only at 10%, while the striking is out of 35%, so only 65% will be going through. He also has resistances towards lightning at 20%, magic at 40%, and holy at 40%. However, his fire resistances are at 80%. So it doesn't really matter what you use against him, you're barely going to be dealing damage. But if you can get close to him, despite the lava, then just go for your melee attacks unless you're using striking attacks. And if you have lightning incantations, then that is your best bet. Otherwise, of course, you want to go for the Great Serpent's Hunt. You do not need to do this boss, but I did because I needed aspect of the Crucible breath. The Fire Giant. Weaknesses, slashing attacks, resistances, fire at 50%, holy at 20%, and also some resistances against frostbite. What is advised here is to go for Ordovis's Vortex. It deals pretty good damage to him, to be honest, guys. And because he is weak against slashing, I am assuming that recommended ability should be Beast Claws and Gorank's Beast Claw. So I did not try them personally, however, you can give it a go. From my personal experience, I like or prefer using those bestial incantations in the open world against weaker enemies. When there are a bunch of them, those turn out to perform much better again against normal enemies, weaker enemies, rather than against bigger bosses like the Fire Giant or any of the main bosses, to be honest with you. So keep that in mind. Spam Ordovis's Vortex for the win and against the Fire Giant. Astel, Stars of Darkness. Weaknesses, all gravity sorceries. Resistances, holy, lightning, fire, magic, frostbite, and I have sleep in there. I usually don't put sleep because I'm assuming everyone knows that all the bosses, the major ones at least, are immune against sleep except for the Godskin Duo. I also do the same thing with madness because all the bosses again are immune to the madness effect except for Sir, Gideon, Ofnir, out of the major bosses again, guys. So I personally went for Ordovis's Vortex, mixed it with Gorank's Claw and Beast Claws. To be honest, those are okay, but again, use them in the open world. And I probably would just spam your Ash of War against this boss. The Godskin Duo. Weaknesses, slashing attacks and hemorrhage, also known as blood loss, resistances, holy and fire at 40, lightning and magic at 20. Recommended abilities, go for Ordovis's Vortex, use especially against Skinny right here. He gets his stance broken so easily, and I'm not sure why a backstab does not deal any damage, or barely deals any damage. At least the initial part of the 2-hit combo deals damage, but the second part does not, which I think is dumb. A backstab should deal more damage, not no damage or barely any. Anyways, I hope they change that one day. Then you want to use the Stone of Gorank whenever they are far away from you. However, whenever the noble here goes for his rolling attack, you want to switch out to aspect of the Crucible tail, and that is also useful if both of them are around, because you will be dealing damage to both of them due to the nice AoE radius that it has. And of course, when they are alone, you just want to use Ordovis's Vortex for the win. Dragon Lord Placidusax. Weaknesses, piercing attacks, and any of the ancient dragon lightning incantations, resistances, standard, strike, slashing. All of the elements are at 40%. All of the other physical damage are at 35% damage absorption, except for, of course, the piercing attacks are only at 10%. That is why you should go for that. However, recommended abilities, as you can see, I am only going for Ordovis's Vortex. Do not forget, this creature right here, this boss, has also pretty high resistances against poison and rot. So you can apply those onto him, but it might take you a bit longer than expected. And I had to learn that the hard way when I had to defeat him using the raw and radical build. You can see that in this playlist, guys, if you want to check it out. Anyways, I utilized Ordovis's Vortex the entire time in combination with some regular attacks, as you can see, some jump attacks, just as much poise damage as I can go for. That is why I am two-handing my Ordovis's great sword here. You want to do the same thing, be consistent, be aggressive. As you can see, make sure you get him even when he's trying to teleport. Don't miss any of your attacks. I promise you, this boss will be stance broken a lot more than you think. And as you can see here, after you go for the critical hit, stick to him right away and go for your Ash of War. It really deals massive damage. With this Ash of War, you want to make sure you get close to your target. You want to make sure you strike them with your sword. And just to show you how tanky this character is, I just walked through his fire, didn't die without using any defensive talismans or incantations. And then here I tried to finish him off with Ordovis's Vortex, but it doesn't work out. I have to drink, then I finish him off with it now though. Maliketh, the Black Blade. Weaknesses, all forms of physical damage. His main resistance is holy damage. However, he does have resistances against everything. All of the physical damage only does 65% of his potential, because he does have 35% damage absorption against all physical damage, and has 40% against magic, fire, and lightning, and 80% against holy damage. However, as you can see, despite that, we are dealing massive damage there. Ordovis's Vortex, Beast Claw in the first phase mixed with aspect of the Crucible Horn will guarantee you many stance breaks. As you can see, stance broken in phase 1, stance broken again right after phase transition, and I promise you that is not the last stance break. This is why this guy is called Crucibeast, the stance breaker. And just be close to him. You can tank a lot of damage, and as long as you know the boss mechanics, you really shouldn't have a hard time. This actually was one of my easiest playthroughs, guys. So again, just maintain your distance. Make sure when he gets in or he gets close to you and there are any openings like this one, go in for an attack. Just don't miss like I just did there. And use jump attacks. Jump attacks are very useful in this build. And of course your Ash of War here is just so OP for stance breaking. Mohg, Lord of Blood. Weaknesses: all types of physical damage and hemorrhage/blood loss. Resistances: fire at 80%, lightning, holy, and magic at 40%. Now he does have 10% damage negation against all types of physical damage. However, that is your best option against Mohg. And of course, if you have blood loss. However, we do not have that. We have a strength/faith build that utilizes holy damage. As you can see, we are still wrecking this boss, stance breaking him with ease. And I do recommend, of course, spamming my favorite Ash of War. When you get the chance to do so, go for, of course, Stone of Godrick when he is far, and that also deals pretty nice poise damage combined with your regular attacks, jump attacks, and all of that. You'll be able to stance break any boss quite easily. Just make sure you are two-handing your sword if you are planning on dealing mainly melee damage, or if you are trying to combine incantations with your melee attacks, then I personally would be one-handing it. However, it's up to you and your playstyle. Loretta, Knight of the Halig Tree. Weaknesses: lightning damage, resistances, magic and fire at 40%, and holy damage at 20%. Recommended skills, as you can see, your regular melee attacks mixed with your Ash of War, Ordovis's Vortex, and another one, of course, a Stone of Godrick. That incantation, you use it when you are far away. That is what I would do. Her resistances against physical damage is only 10%, all types of physical damage, so you can rely on regular hits quite a lot here. Keep that in mind. Try to keep stance breaking her as much as possible for an easy win. Malenia, Blade of Mikola. Weaknesses: hemorrhage, frostbite, and fire damage. Resistances: poison, rot, and holy damage at 40%. She also has 2 more minor resistances against magic damage and lightning damage, both at 20%. However, if she is walking on the water, then she will lose 10% of her lightning resistance, meaning she only has 10% total lightning resistance, down from 20 when she is on the water. And it works the other way around with fire. If she is walking on the water, she will gain 10% fire damage absorption, but if she is not walking on it, she will have 0 resistances against fire damage. Keep that in mind, guys. And of course, for this boss specifically, even in all of her phases, the recommended abilities, as you have seen already, are aspects of the Crucible Horn, knock her up in the air, and then try to go for an aspect of the Crucible Tail or Ordovis's Vortex immediately after if you wish to obtain a stance break. As you can see, stance broken 3 times in her first phase, guys. Now, moving on to phase 2. Knock her up in the air there, charge attack, and keep going at it. Aspect of the Crucible Horn is no joke, and you have to be extra careful when you go for your Ordovus' Vortex. As you can see, guys, she almost killed me there, but I kept my composure and I recovered. She does that once or twice, as you can see here as well, where she hits me, but again, keep calm and move on. That's about it. You can try to use Stone of Garan, but she does avoid those projectiles quite easily. I tried going for Gorang's Beast Claw here, but I would not recommend it to me. I was just testing it out at one point, and as you can see, well, you will see it soon enough, I will not perform well using that spell, and it's pointless unless you use it out in the open world, where you are surrounded by multiple enemies at a time, and it becomes a lot more useful during those specific situations. But against single targets, especially light bosses like Rennala, see, completely missed the target. The initial part connected, but the second part of Gorang's Beast Claw did not connect. This is why I rather use Aspect of the Crucible Horn, knock her up into the air, go for Aspect of the Crucible Tail, stance break her, go for the critical hit, and as soon as you're done with that, you go for Ordovus' Vortex to deal massive damage. If you go for another charged attack or jump attack after that, you probably would be able to stance break her again. So that's all you have to do against Malenia. It really makes it that much easier. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked what I did to Malenia. 4 stance breaks in one fight. Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. Weaknesses: madness and lightning damage. Resistances: slashing attacks, and he is immune to Deathblight, so do not use any of that against him. Recommended abilities, because he is a light boss, a small boss that you can easily flip into the air. Of course, Aspect of the Crucible Horns becomes a must. As you can see, guys, here, I'm not even giving him a chance to breathe. Aspect of the Crucible Horn, followed by Aspect Tail, and with Ordovus' Vortex, he has no chance. Godfrey, first Elden Lord. Weaknesses: lightning, piercing, and slashing in phase 2. Resistances: mainly holy damage at 40% with a minor resistances, and magic and fire at 20% for both of them. However, guys, what I would recommend using here is Stone of Garan when you are far, of course. Charged attacks when you get the chance, and if there are any big openings, you go for Ordovus' Vortex, as you can see me do right here, followed by jump attack and then another quick attack to start the phase transition. Here he becomes weaker against slashing attacks because he got naked and stuff apparently. However, slashing attacks, Beast Claw does not perform very well against bosses. As you can see, 628 fully charged, but it deals pretty decent poise damage once it's fully charged, so keep that in mind. I wish they changed the way this incantation works and make it like a shotgun where each projectile does its own damage.
Tarnished thy strength with its crown.
Radagon of the Golden Order. Weaknesses: fire damage, resistances, lightning at 80%, and is immune to blood loss. Recommended abilities, as you can see, Aspect of the Crucible Tail, Horn, and Ordovus' Vortex. Now let me break down his resistances really quickly. 35 against standard, slashing, and piercing attacks. Also has minor resistances in magic and lightning at 20%. Has 0 fire damage absorption, so that is your safest bet against him. Anyways, he also is immune to Deathblight and does have pretty high resistances against Frostbite, Poison, and Scarlet Rot, but nothing too much to worry about. Regardless, with this build, go for the recommended abilities, deal that massive poise damage to him. As you can see, he was just stance broken, and guess what? He's about to get stance broken again. Easy one, guys. The Elden Beast. Weaknesses, all types of physical damage. Resistances, holy damage is at 80%, lightning, fire, and magic are at 40%, and the recommended ability is Ordovis's Vortex. This will lead to a lot of stance breaks and a lot of critical hits, of course. So guys, what you need to know about Ordovis's Vortex is to make sure that you are really close to the target when you use it. The reason being is that you want to hit the target with your blade, which is the initial part of that combo. Alright, as you can see, 1 and then 3 different explosions or eruptions, holy damage come from the ground following your initial strike with the blade. And that initial strike deals half the damage and deals half the poison damage. So it is very important that you connect all 4 hits if you want to get quick stance breaks. If you don't do that, it's going to take a lot longer to get the job done. Other than that, guys, we are pretty much done. I hope you enjoyed watching the Crucibeast build guide. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're all having a great day. Take care. I'll see you all next time. Peace.